Hello, I'm Ted Elsner from the Sacramento Fry Fester, and today we have Sam from Castille Armory. He's brought down a couple of new toys for us to take a look at, and since we had him here, figured, hey, why not talk to him a little bit about the new swords and also some of the incidents he's had with the first run on the model, and just give him an opportunity to talk about it. So the first thing, Sam, that I wanted to ask you is, how long have you been doing this? How long have you been making swords?
I've been building swords since the early 90s, actually. As far as guards go, I've been making my own blades for about 2.5 years now. So previous to that, I was using anything I get my hands on, darkwood, for the quality stuff, and Hanways for the affordable stuff, putting it on the hilts that I built.
Absolutely, but now your own. Excellent. And what got you into making swords? Why did you decide?
SCA, primarily. Gotta say SCA.
Okay. And so speaking of that, as someone that's coming now from the SCA into the HEMA market, what kind of challenges have you experienced with what we do to the swords and what we expect of them versus your SCA clientele?
Well, there's a huge span between SCA combat and HEMA combat. When it comes down to it, I think just pure brutality, especially from the standpoint of the tools themselves, is really key on that. There's a lot of historical now in the SCA, a lot of historical perception toward that, and certainly with you guys, it's very much that way. And so I'm seeing a lot of crossover now, and that's kind of been a driving force with getting into HEMA and understanding what you guys are doing a lot more.
Very nice, very nice. So with that in mind, you've been successful in the SCA for quite a while. I mean, we have a few members of the SCA, and when it came up that you were making swords, they immediately said great things about you. Why get into HEMA? Why take on us when you already have that other market?
As a small business, first and foremost, in an economy like this, especially a niche economy, you've got to diversify. Two, as a lifelong artist of the sword, I want to get into the different groups and see what makes them tick. There's always something I can learn from that, and so that's just another reason. I mean, you guys are basically in my backyard and all over the nation, so it only makes sense to get into as many groups as I can, and learn from that.
Excellent. Yeah, and for those of you that aren't aware, Sam is in Southern Oregon, so he's making and producing all this stuff in the United States and then getting it shipped to us locally. He was nice enough to drive down to visit us here in Sacramento. What, 6 hours?
Not even.
Not even? Nice.
Just about 5.
Just about 5. Driving fast. Nice. Excellent. So a question we had that was asked is, you have the new swords. When can we expect to actually see them on the website so people don't have to go through Facebook or otherwise to get them?
As of last week, we kind of finished trials on a fetter that's going to crossover from SCA, CNT, and HEMA General. So expect to see these on the website actually next week, I think.
Okay. No, excellent. Yeah, so within 1 week, sorry to cut you off there. And what is going to be the price point on them when they're on the website?
Price point on the website is going to be $300 for a complete sword, and that does not include shipping. So we'll deal with that as
the case comes, case by case. Yeah. Absolutely. And so one of the questions also we got asked was, we know you do a lot of custom work, but what about people that want small customizations to the sword? Not, full custom job, but maybe, options for instance, a little bit longer or shorter pommel, variations in the cross. Do you have, are you open to that?
Absolutely. Variations on the finished product as it is now is actually very easy for me to do. So as long as things like acid etching or you want your personal logo on it or things like that, there probably won't be much of a price difference if you want some customization to it. If it's something like a shorter grip or a different pommel, and I have it in stock, it's something that I make now, there will be no difference in cost. So I'm trying to keep it affordable there and kind of keep it customizable as much as I possibly can.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's then talk about the new longsword and take a look at it. So here we go.
All right, so this here is the kind of end-all be-all with all of the input that I have received from the HEMA groups across the country and from the SEA cut and thrust community. This is what I've come out with, and I think it's going to be a good crossover for both, if not a little heavy for SEA C&T, still legal by society standards easily, but it is a beefy blade, so if you're into something that's going to be lighter, come talk to me about a custom, and we'll deal with that. But as far as a piece that it's going to work well, I think this is the one.
Okay, excellent. Let me just grab one of our old versions just so people can see kind of some of the differences for anybody that got the initial. Probably one of the main differences that sprung to mind immediately was how wide that blade was at the tip versus, the earlier one that I'm holding here was, often described as a needle. The new one, a lot more beefy, a lot more robust. What are the new specs? I guess so if somebody has this older version, what's the difference?
Well, for comparison's sake, I'd like to start out with the specs on the prototype model, and then move to where they ended up. So the prototype model handles were pretty much the same. The scent stopper pommel is essentially the same profile, except that on the newer one, I beefed it up a little bit to counterbalance the extra material that's going into the blade and the guard. So the balance point is the same. It's at the front of the shield. Other than that, it's the same handle. Now for the guard, what we've done with the feedback, in the SCA we don't have too much trouble with guards bending unless people get really busy on them. But for HEMA, we did have, with our 1/4-inch guard, we did have them bend. So what I've done is I've beefed up the guard. We're using 3/8-inch A2 tool steel. It is not hardened, but it starts out at a much more rigid hardening state to start out with. So we're dealing with probably 4 times the force to bend this guard than this one here. And I don't think it's likely to happen at all.
Right. So speaking of things like that, we had one of our members that had a question that he wanted to ask of you specifically. And so let's get him over here.
So you made me a sword and it broke. So technically, why did it break and what did you do to fix that?
So what's happening with the original blades that I made is we have a 1/2-inch by 0.214 tang, and it runs the length of the handle. Originally, we didn't do any type of radius up here, and that caused a stress point right there, and frankly they broke. With the mass of the blade and the length of the handle, a lot of force gets put on that area right there. So what we've done to remedy that in the new version, see that there, is that the tang, if you can look here, you can see that the tang is very, very wide in comparison. We're over 5/8 wide here now, close to 3/4 as opposed to the 1/2-inch there. So we've given it quite a bit more tang. The other thing we've done is we've put a 3/8 radius in the corner, and that 3/8 radius will soak up a lot of that pinching force in there, and hopefully spread that out. So all in all, it's a much beefier tang all the way down, and that's how we've kind of addressed that issue.
I have a new sword now, I'm happy.
Thank you, Chris. Excellent. No, it's beautiful. We've played with them a little bit so far today, and been enjoying them so far. We'll be including a little bit of video of them in action at the end as well. So based on that, I guess one of the questions that came up was for your Meyer side sword. That same issue though shouldn't be a case, right?
It shouldn't be a case. And when we're talking about shear points and we're talking about mass, the amount of force that gets put on a longsword like this, when you're talking about leverage out here, and you're talking about the mass of the blade, and we're talking about the same thing here, scaled down. When you really look at it from a scale down standpoint, the tang is actually wider for this blade than it was with the. It's actually equal or wider than it is with these new ones now. So I don't see that that's going to be a problem, and we haven't had any break at all. So And we use quite a few of these in our practices, and we beat the heck out of them. One of the things we're definitely doing now too is we're putting them through their paces in the shop before we even let them out. So
very nice, very nice. So just then a couple other questions that I had personally. Any new products coming down to look forward to? I love what we've got so far, and if not, I have suggestions.
Absolutely. We're always looking at diversifying, and if somebody comes out with something, we're like, oh my gosh, we got to make something like that. There is an R&D process, and with as busy as we've been, we're a 4-person shop, so we get backed up pretty easily. And with the SCA surges that come in before Penzic and things like that, we definitely get hit really hard. So, so we are working on some new products. One of them is a Italian dueling saber. We're looking at doing a Masiella. We're looking at doing something like that that'll have a back strap. It'll be an accurate grip, and the blade will have an accurate curve and fuller and length and weight for that.
I just want to throw out there for all the Meyer Freifester Guild, steel Dusac trainer. That's one of the things that at our symposium that we had this year that was brought up more than anything else. So if you could manage to do a nice steel Dusac trainer with a nice knuckle bow, so that we and nagel.
Positive we can do that.
Absolutely.
I'm positive we can do that. I actually started working on a prototype of that about 2 years ago.
Perfect.
And found that, and at that time my only outlet was SCA, and I couldn't get it down to SCA standard flex. But with HEMA and not having to be adhered to a flex standard,
we'd be happy to try.
Then there's definitely a lot we can do. A couple other things that I'm looking at throwing out there in the near future is a true Italian cup dueling rapier. Something a little bit more realistic than the SCA cup hilt that I have now. So that's another one.
Excellent, excellent. Anything else you wanted to add then, Sam? If not, I think it's just about time for our practice to get started, and we'll get to see some of the swords in action as well.
Well, I thank you a lot for having me down here.
Thanks, Sam.
And giving me the chance to, giving me the insight to build a product for you guys that's going to work really well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.